Hi ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Moen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hi! Welcome back! Episode 17.
Here we are.
A Court of Mist and Fury, chapters 27 through to chapters 30. A very exciting stint of chapters, actually. I'm really looking forward to this episode because we last left when Feyre had been snatched by the Ator.
Yes. Well, we don't know it's the Ator yet, but she had been grabbed.
Yes, grabbed around the mouth.
Yes.
And fortunately, old Rhys boy decides to come and save the day.
Of course he does.
Of course he does.
I knew this was going to happen.
So he instantly appears and he binds the Ator's hands. So he instantly appears and binds the Ator to a tree with his powers. He's very talented, old Rhys boy.
And he does it with his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
Like it's just all in his mind.
Yeah, he really doesn't even need to do much at all.
No, that's right.
To do the most.
Yeah.
The Ator was sent to get Feyre by the King of Highburn, and Rhys quizzes the Ator about what are you doing here? What's the plan? And the Ator confirms, because he has to, that the King of Highburn has sent him. His armies are endless and he's coming soon.
Yeah. I actually think the Ator's pretty weak in terms of like Rhys is only torturing him. I'm assuming he's doing something in his mind for a very short period of time and he's giving answers like that.
He knows how powerful Rhys is.
Yeah.
He's been observing Rhys under the mountain for 50 years.
Yeah.
And Rhys is at full power.
Yes.
And there's no Amarantha. And there's no reason for Rhys to not unleash. So he's going for it.
I think the Ator knew how dangerous this was as well, considering Rhys is back at full power.
Yeah, that's right. So Rhys says to him, answer my question and you can crawl back to your master. And he enters the Ator's mind and ransacks it, essentially. And he's like, he's of no more use. He has told us everything.
Yeah.
But the Ator's pleading. He's like, I've got more to tell you. And Rhys is like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You absolutely don't.
I actually love there's a moment in this particular scene where Rhys is questioning the Ator and he straightens all of a sudden and then Azriel slams into the snow next to him.
Yep.
So it's almost as if Rhys knew that Azriel was coming and he's kind of like straightened and stood off to the side as Azriel has arrived.
Azriel's going to take care of business.
And Rhys says to the Ator, the next time you try to take her, I'll kill first and ask questions later.
Yeah.
And before the Ator can even scream about his current scenario, Az walks up to him and grabs him and they winnow, which is interesting because this is the first time that Az has winnowed and it's the first time Feyre realises that she's never seen him winnow beforehand.
Yeah.
Rhys tells her that they'll use him to send a message to Highburn that if they want to hunt the members of my court, they'll have to do better than that. And Feyre kind of startles at the declaration that Rhys has made that she is a member of his court and he'll protect her, essentially. So she's quite shocked by that. But then it's overtaken by her rage.
She quickly realises she's been used as bait.
Yeah.
And she fucking loses it.
She does. Yeah.
So she's pissed at Rhys. They have a fight. He tells her she forgot again about the fact that she has strength and power. He's like, what are you doing? I've told you enough times you need to not be fearful. You need to fight.
Yes.
And she's like, well, that's all well and good for you. You used me as bait. And he says, you need to try harder. And
he taunts her.
he does.
With the winnowing. So he starts to winnow around and she's like raging after him.
And he's
Imagine
just
her like an animal. Yeah. Just like dodging.
just jumping out of the way.
And I think he sees this because he knows that Feyre's anger is such a trigger for her to get stuff done.
Exactly.
So I think he sees her anger And he doesn't actually yet appreciate the mistake that he has made.
Yes.
But he uses Feyre's anger to try and get her to learn something. So
Yeah.
in winnowing around and deflecting her, he teaches her indirectly how to winnow.
Yeah.
So she channels that anger into trying to winnow after him so that she can actually get him.
Yeah.
And she does.
She does.
For the first time,
Yep.
she winnows. So as winnows for the first time that she's seen,
Yep.
she winnows for the first time and tackles Rhys to the ground.
Yep.
But before she tackles him, as she's sort of like coming at him, she notes that his eyes were wide and his mouth split into a grin of wicked delight.
He loves it.
So he knew. I think he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, 100%.
And when she did winnow, he's happy as Larry.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
Exactly.
Again.
She tackles him to the ground and, she rages at him and says, I need you to teach me how to be a weapon, not to just use me as one. She also notes that she didn't realise their size difference until they were this close together.
Yeah, she's on top of him. She's like, well, yeah.
You are tall and wide.
And wide, broad.
Yes.
Delicious. So she says, don't ever use me as bait again. And he can see now.
Yeah.
He's like, oof.
Yeah.
I fucked up. So he apologises and then they start talking about the King of Highburn. And Feyre asks Rhys if the King of Highburn wants her because he knows she can nullify the cauldron. He doesn't confirm whether or not that's true, even though he largely knows that it is.
Yeah.
But he's going to find out, supposedly.
Yeah.
He invites her to breakfast.
Yeah.
And they go to go home, and she says, "Valaris isn't my home."
Yeah.
Then she clocks his look, and it's hurt.
Yes,
He's
it
hurt.
is. Yeah, it is. And he even asks her. He says, show me how you did it. Show me how you winnowed. And she's like, piss off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I mean, trying to get her to winnow again when she's already raging about something else is working just as well as, baptising a cat. Just not happening, Rhys. So they return. What?
That's the best thing I think I've ever heard you say.
Anyway, so they return to the estate, her sister's house, and Cassian's there with Satan's apprentice. And he gives like this super dramatic bow to her. And Nesta, gives him a vulgar gesture. Please show me what you think Nesta's vulgar gesture would look like.
I feel like she's the double middle finger girl.
The crossover.
Yeah. Yeah. I really do feel like she put some real effort into it.
Yes. I actually pictured that exact vulgar gesture. So they go back to Valaris now and Rhys leaves Feyre in the house. He just dumps her
He's like, bye.
Goes off to do a few other bits.
Yeah.
He returns an hour later and they talk about what has just happened. So he's just come from the Court of Nightmares with the ACOTAR.
Yes.
He asks her, how much do you want to see? It's up to you to decide. And she says, show me everything.
Yeah. And so he does.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. He opens up his shields and he shows her through the bond what they did along with Rhys's thoughts. So not only can she see what's happened, she can feel and hear what Rhys was thinking whilst they were doing it.
It's like she's in Rhys.
Yeah.
She's in his body. Yeah.
Yeah, so they've seen the torture process of the ACOTAR and she clocks the as has his knife and it's inscribed with its name, Truth Teller. And he's mention is that
the imagery of that, right? Azrael like crouching down with this large rune-covered blade balancing on his knee. And obviously he's got these beautiful big wings.
Yeah.
It's quite the image, isn't it?
I would love to see some fan art of that actually.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be a stunning piece to have in my home.
Yes.
For no other reason than beautiful art.
Yes, exactly. Moving on. During this awful scene, Rhys actually has this moment where he realises how proud he is of Feyre for winnowing. So, never mind the torture that's happening in front of him. He's like, I'm so proud of her.
Okay, Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a really interesting thing that the ACOTAR says to Rhys, which I think really gets to him, is good luck trying to keep her, High Lord. He offers Rhys a deal to say that if Rhys worked with the king, that the king might let him keep her. And
ridiculous.
yeah, and I think that just pisses him off even more, to be honest.
So Rhys reads the ACOTAR's thoughts and sees the huge army. He sees all of the ships.
Yeah.
Doesn't see any signs of Durian or the cauldron or the book.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, the ACOTAR's done. There is zero more value in keeping him.
He actually says, break its legs, shred its wings and dump it off the coast of Highburn to see if it survives. When he's done with it.
That's Az's job. And Az has said very little about his life, that his shadow singer may have come to him when he was locked away from his father's.
I think Rhys just has a memory here around how little he knows. So he doesn't know anything about the time that Az was kept in the cell, other than that he was allowed out for the 1 hour.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know how he got his powers as a shadow singer, when that happened. Doesn't know if he does or doesn't enjoy the work that he does for Rhys. My understanding or interpretation is that he just doesn't talk very much unless it's someone asking him a question or important information.
He doesn't volunteer anything about himself.
That's right.
Yeah. But I also find it perplexing that Rhys doesn't ask more.
Yeah.
Because they've been together a long time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, he certainly lets people have their own personal thoughts. There's mention around the spring court as well. And once Feyre comes back into her own body in the townhouse, she actually asks Rhys and she says, you know, what situation in the spring court?
Yeah.
And he says none, but you know how far Tamlin can be pushed when he's pushed to protect what he thinks is his.
So, yeah, Rhys is essentially telling her that there's nothing happening, but
he thinks something will.
You know how Tamlin gets. And I wrote here that Feyre has a flashback of the paint running down the wall of the study.
Yes.
That gets fucked up every chance it gets.
Yeah.
And that imagery really stuck with me because I was like, yeah, she's remembering just the ruin of things that are important to her. And that's basically her entire time in the spring court, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she decides that she's going to write a letter.
Yeah. And with that imagery about the spring court, Rhys actually says to her, I should have sent more that day.
Yes.
And do you remember we talked a few episodes ago about I thought it was Feyre's powers exploding without any restraint?
Yes.
Whereas you thought it was Tamlin having a hissy fit.
Yeah.
And after I read that again, I realised that maybe it was Tamlin having a hissy fit.
Right.
And because Rhys was like, I should have sent more that day.
Yeah.
As in
when
it should have come
you were in
and got
trouble.
you that day. Yeah. But it still doesn't confirm way. But it did make me think that maybe it was actually Tamlin in the end.
It wouldn't be known to Rhys because remember remember how Rhys describes that there was nothing really down the bond and that he really had to check if she was dead or alive.
Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't probably know.
Yeah.
So that's still up in the air, I imagine.
Yeah. But she does write a letter. Yeah. And he says, are you sure? And she says yes.
Yeah. So she basically says to Tamlin that she left her of her own free will, that she's safe, she's grateful for all he did, and please don't come looking for me. And my head went to, I wonder if he actually believes that Feyre wrote it of her own free will or if she's writing it under duress.
Yeah.
But she describes her head feeling clearer after she'd done that. And I wrote down my favourite quote from this is, I am no one's pet.
Yes. Yeah. Quite like that one.
Yeah.
I think that Tamlin knows the games that Rhys plays. So I think that he would know it's her writing it and sending it.
Yeah.
However, he's absolutely 100% convinced that Rhys has altered her conscious state to believe whatever it is that Rhys wants her to believe.
Yeah.
So Tamlin doesn't care whether Feyre wrote it or not. He doesn't believe that that's what she actually wants.
Yeah, sure.
Rhys then says to Feyre that he wants to give her the day off because she's had a big day. With the ACOTAR, but she's decided that she doesn't want to sleep anymore, which is really an important moment for me because that's what she's wanted to do a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Like when she couldn't go into the prison, she just slept all day. back when she was visiting the night court, she did a lot of sleeping because she was just so tired within herself. Whereas today's the first time she's decided that she doesn't actually want to sleep anymore. She says to Rhys, you told me this city was better seen at night. Are you all talk or will you bother to show me? Which is basically accosting him to take her out.
Yeah, which I quite like, finally.
That night, the plan is for them all to go out, which is really nice, I think. I think if Rhys and Feyre just went out by themselves, that there's no buffer there between them.
That's right.
By Rhys inviting everyone, it was a bit easier.
Yep.
Amren, my favourite, walks in the door to Feyre's bedroom and the ladies, what are their names again?
Nuala and Ceridwen.
Thank you. Yep. They puff into puffs of smoke and disappear at her presence. They're absolutely terrified of her. Mm-hmm. And again, Amren with the good, she says, I don't even want to know how those two were conceived. High Fae will stick their anywhere.
They're
You to blank that.
So they're half wraith and half Fae creatures.
Which is creepy to think about, right?
So that's how they can not winnow but disappear.
Yeah.
That's the wraith movement. That's typical of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a wraith yet, have we?
No, only the water wraith.
Yeah.
Which doesn't. I'm assuming they can move like that through water, but they don't.
I think it's a different sort of wraith.
Yeah.
There might be different sorts.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get some more information.
Yeah.
Interesting part here. Oh, sorry, before dinner. Interesting thing that I picked up on was that Amren tells Feyre that the girls are now downstairs reporting Amren's movements to Azriel.
Yes.
And Feyre's like, oh, don't they answer to Rhys? And Amren's like, well, they were trained by Rhys.
By Az,
and they report to him.
Yeah.
And I found that really interesting because this is just another moment where Azriel, I think, knows something more about Amren than he's letting on.
Yeah.
And he keeps tabs on her movement.
Yes.
Just like how he watched her response when Rhys revealed that Durian was planning to be resurrected.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't trust her loyalty.
I think, considering what I know from the rest of the books, I suspect he has an idea of not only what she actually is, but that she is that she's pretty sick of being in the High Fae's body.
Yeah.
And she's ready for a change of scenery.
So he's keeping tabs.
Yeah. I reckon he's keeping tabs on her.
Yeah.
And Feyre gives Amren back the necklace in this scene as well.
Yeah.
And that's when
she's like, don't worry about it.
Amren's like,
yeah. And she's like, Feyre just has this realization of, well, fuck.
Amren is sneaky AF.
Yeah. They have a bit of a conversation about the tithe here.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah. So before dinner, Feyre basically asks, what about the tithe? And Amren's like, what
about it? Yeah.
But she does say that the city dwellers in Valaris do pay taxes, but there's no tithe.
But the High Lord of the Spring Court enacts one.
Yeah. So dinner
time.
Oh. Yeah. Under the stars by the river.
Yeah. And actually walking down. Oh, yes. Again, Amren. She's an avid sporting supporter.
Of course she is.
Just another random thing about her.
She is random, isn't she?
She is. Absolutely love it. Doesn't say what sport it is. No.
Quidditch, clearly.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah. The only magical sport.
Yes. Yeah. That's all I know. So
yeah.
So they're at a restaurant and Rhys loves this place apparently. And the cook realises that Amren's pushing food around on her plate and brings her a goblet. And Feyre was like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
And she swirls it around and she can see that it's a red liquid that's quite thick and it's coating the sides of the goblet and she quickly realises it's blood.
Yeah.
And the cook says, I needed the beast for tomorrow anyway. It's warm, it's fresh, go for your life. And Amren swirls it around and takes a sip and she goes, "Ooh, you spiced it nicely." And she's got like bloodstained teeth and Feyre's like, "Oh." So I loved that particular scene. I can vividly see it in my head.
Wow. Okay, I feel like I know it better now.
Yeah.
Just from you saying.
Good. So then Rhys and Feyre decide that they will walk home after
Instead of going dancing.
There's a conversation. Maur wants to go dancing. Cassian's like, yep, cool. And Az is like, oh, well, I'm going to go because I'm jealous, basically.
Well, Feyre must not be that scared of Amren because she does turn pleading eyes to Amren. And she's gone, and Rhys says into her ear, like, she's gorging herself in the alley.
Yeah.
Again, Amren.
Yeah.
Like, loving her.
She's got more blood. She's tucked herself up. I can just see her with her goblet of blood and a book.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Petting her jewellery.
Yes, in her cave.
In her cave.
So Rhys and Feyre take the long way home and they go walking.
Yep.
They stop on the bridge as well that overlooks the Valaris, the rainbow.
Yes.
And they sort of have a little bit of a conversation about, Rhys says, this is my favourite spot in the city. And Feyre's like, well, why didn't you build your house like right here?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, why would I change a damn thing about this place? And she was like, well, isn't that what all High Lords do? You know, whatever the hell they want. And I love his response to her, which was, there are a great many things that I'd like to do and don't get to. So vague, but now rereading it, I'm like, he's so he has the patience of, do you know what I mean? Like this whole time
he knows.
He knows and he's not revealed. He's like, slightly like pushing her with her powers and her handwriting and, you know, stuff like that. But imagine how lonely he must be.
And he knows, like, obviously he's 500 years old, right? It's taken him 500 years to find her. And she doesn't know anything yet.
No.
And he's like, oh, God, come on, like, yeah, when are you going to realise? So they basically are wandering around and she's quizzing him about a few things and she's like, so tell me about Amren.
Yes.
Like, you know, why do you buy her jewellery? Is it because of this or is it because you're together?
Yeah.
And he pieces himself laughing. He's like, well, there was this one time that I did invite her to my bed and Amren lost her shit laughing.
He said she laughed herself hoarse, which like I can just picture her just like laughing for like half an hour though. Like just not stopping. You know those
and
people
he's like,
and it just goes on
and
forever.
He's left and she's still laughing.
And he's shriveling like even more as the minutes go by. And like, you know, when you stop and you take that massive breath and then just keep laughing, that's exactly what I picture to happen to.
100%. So Feyre's sussing the waters out here.
Yeah.
And surely Rhys is really in tune to that. Yeah. Surely.
And they keep walking and Feyre hears a really interesting bit of music.
Yeah.
Which we had talked about a little bit, I think, in the earlier episode about that music. And I think we had revealed the spoiler that it's from Valaris.
Yes.
But this is the first time that Feyre realises that. And again, sad Rhys says, because you were breaking and I couldn't find another way to save you.
Yeah. Beautiful. What I love about this is that she tells him that she saw the Court of Dreams and he says to her, I didn't send that to you.
Yeah.
So she has heard this bit of music, conjured up the visual herself, and he didn't send it.
No. And what I also love is that earlier in this chapter she says that her legs were burning when she was walking and that she was considering begging Rhys to fly her home. After they have this moment where he tells her about the music, he just like picks her up and starts to fly home. Yeah. So he's like, obviously I think he pretends that her shields are up or like maybe they are, but he just has this like hole in them where he still hears stuff.
Yeah.
And so he knows that she wants to be flown home because her legs are tired.
Yes.
And so he just does it.
Yeah.
And Feyre says, I could learn to love it. I realised the flying.
Yeah.
Which is great. And they get home and the magical flirty paper arrives.
This is my favourite thing ever. So she's in bed and she's minding her own beeswax.
Yeah.
And pop.
Yeah.
Out from her book.
Arrives.
A text arrives. Her phone beeps.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even remember what it says, but there's an exchange between them about
how
licking.
Bruised he is.
Oh, yes.
Like you should come and lick my wounds because I'm so bruised after you tackling me into the snow.
Yes. Yeah. And she says, go lick your wounds, leave me be.
Yeah.
And he says, I would rather you lick me.
Yeah.
And then she says, calling his bluff, where would you like me to lick you? And he says, let's start with everywhere.
And Feyre's like, oh God, what do I say now?
And
I've
then
backed myself into a corner.
She burns him by saying, well, you weren't good at that under the mountain. And she admits to herself that's a lie.
Yes.
Because it had been exactly what she needed in that moment.
And again, I think Rhys hears her call herself a liar.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And then he says, he brags to her about the fact that he's really good at licking, and then he teases her about making sure she doesn't moan too loudly in her sleep because he needs his beauty rest.
It's such a Rhys thing to say.
Isn't it? And he doesn't need his beauty rest because, damn.
Because he has naturally good Illyrian looks.
Delicious.
Speaking of Illyrians, the next day they're in the sparring circles and Cassian is trying but failing to – well, actually, Cassian is trying to teach Feyre to fight and Feyre is failing at learning how to fight.
Yes, dear old thing.
She's not doing very good. Just in the circle across from them is the image that we all would like, which is Rhys and Azriel sparring. And the day, it's gotten hot.
Yeah.
It's summertime and the sun's beating down on them.
Yep.
And it's quite barren, so there's no trees or shade to cool off.
Yep.
So they've decided to take off their jackets and their shirts.
Of course they have.
I don't know how, I'd see why Feyre is failing at learning how to fight. And she actually says, Cassian says that Rhys is out of shape, but Az won't beat him into the ground. And Feyre's like, well, cauldron boil me. What do they eat to look like that?
Oh.
So she's obviously got one eye over there, but she also doesn't, I think, want Cassian to know that she's just perving on Rhys.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yeah. So she's trying to maintain some sort of decorum.
Yeah.
This is where that argument we had last time is about Rhys's smell.
Oh, the salty citrus. Yes, we do hear a little bit about that in a minute. Yeah.
That's why I appreciate salt.
Feyre and Cassian have a discussion and he actually, when he catches her looking over at Rhys and Az, he describes or explains the Illyrian tattoos to her. So he actually describes that they get them when they are initiated as an Illyrian warrior for luck and glory on the battlefield. And Feyre actually makes the connection that maybe Rhys gave her tattoo to wish her luck and glory against Amaranthum.
Oh.
Yeah, not just a sign of their bond, which she doesn't know at this point that bonds are marked. Like he says to her under the mountain that they are marked upon flesh, but we don't know the tattoo that Rhys has that marks their bond.
Yes.
And it's not really ever talked about again.
Yeah.
So she doesn't quite, I don't think she sort of makes a connection that it's just about the bargain.
Yeah.
She thinks that maybe he did it to wish her luck in his own way.
Yeah, that's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah. And Cassian asks Feyre a question about when she's going to talk about what happened with the letter.
Yes.
She gets pissed about it and Cassian, we see a bit more of his personality here.
Yes.
Where we see that he is actually quite sweet in that he was like, I'm actually really sorry. It was a shitty way of asking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if you were okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually fell in love a little bit with Cassian in this scene because he's like, oh, that was really shit of me. Yeah. And they brush over it after they have their first interaction and then she says, I'm fine. And he's like, yep, fine, it's good, fine, it's fine.
Good.
Yeah. And then they kind of keep going.
Yeah, that's right. Feyre, I think after she says, I'm fine, she does start to get those flashbacks and she starts to get angry because she realises everything that she did for Tamlin and how little he did for her afterwards. She gets really overwhelmed. She has a whole bunch of memories about the situation.
Yeah.
And she says the one thing out loud that she's decided not to deal with yet. We haven't heard anything about it since Under the Mountain, which is she said, I killed them, referring to the two Fae from Under the Mountain. And, she breaks down and she says it should have been me. Cassian responds well in that he says, I know, and nothing else. And she actually refers to, while they're having this conversation, that she believes Rhys and Asriel are listening and doing their best to not look like they're eavesdropping on the situation.
Yeah, and they absolutely are watching because by the time she's finished, her anger is channeled through those sparring pads and wraps and she has burnt holes in everything.
Yes.
And he is like got the pads up. He's like, I'm fine. She comes out of it and he's like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like he's ready to allow her to keep going if that's what she needs.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is amazing.
Yeah. And Rhys comes over and she describes him as a sweat, slick male body halted before me.
I'm sorry. If you don't think that's hot, then get out.
I don't love sweat. I don't love sweat.
Rhys?
Well,
sweaty?
Like I wouldn't mind.
Okay. That'll do.
It's here nor there for me.
Sure.
Yeah. Rhys apologises to Feyre for not being able to do more for her under the mountain.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm sorry I couldn't spare you from dying, or more so from wanting to die. He tells Feyre that he has 2 nightmares. One where he is his whore again, or his friends are, which we talked about in one of the earlier episodes. And the second is where he replays the part where Amarantha snaps Feyre's neck.
Yeah.
Feyre doesn't know what to say to this admission. And so she does what I think all of us would like to do, which is peruses Rhys's muscled torso.
Why not?
Yeah. So
It's
she's
not like he's hiding it.
Yeah. So she's like looking at the tattoos, following them. She's like, oh, yeah, they're really good. They're really nice. And she sort of gets down.
Hi.
And then she describes the V that disappears into his pants, and she's like, like realize what she's doing. Yeah. And he asks her to, summon darkness again, to help her, and she can't.
She can't do it.
She asks him like, oh, how do I do it? And he's like, just will it into being. She's like, fucking hell, come on.
Can you tell me specifically how to do it?
And he's like, well, just try thinking about me and how good looking I am.
The cocky.
Very cocky. And she's like, put a shirt on. Like it's her only response.
Yeah.
And the opposite of what she wants.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, does it make you uncomfortable? Which I love. And then to diffuse the tension, Rhys gives her a little sniff and says, go take a bath. She gives him, my favourite, a vulgar gesture.
Love it.
Again, please show me what that
This
would
would be
like.
something like...
And she asks Cassian to fly her home.
I would do that
Which
too.
she
I'd be like...
I think she knows that pisses Rhys off more.
Yeah, when he doesn't fly with her, he's like, I'm going home with Cass.
Yep.